Hello, 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 and welcome again to the College of Creation. My name is Dan.
And my name is Michael.
And we are Dungeons & Dragons DMs who love to homebrew items, spells, creatures, and features for D&D. And this is a show where every week, mostly every week, we make new stuff based on prompts from our community. Brand new homebrew all the time, just coming out of this podcast. I don't know how many things we've made so far, but it's too many.
30 plus episodes now. Last week was our 30th episode.
30 plus. Last week was kind of an experimental episode.
Yeah.
We had to just talk through. I don't know if we actually got to anywhere concrete, but it was fun. I hope it was fun for the listeners, but if it wasn't, I hope you skipped it and just joined us on this one, because this is going to be business as usual.
A return to form,
Indeed.
yes.
But first, before we begin, I wanted to ask you about something, an update, if you will, from a while back that you talked about on the podcast. You were in a production of The Hunchback of Notre Dame, and that production is over now, right?
It just closed as of recording just about a week ago.
How'd it go? Tell me all about it.
It was fantastic. It was, we performed in kind of this old theater that is infamously not a very good space for lighting and sound. It is community theater, so the budget is not like a touring production or anything like that, but really great. There were a few sound issues across the run, but nothing detrimental to the shows. I had a couple. I'm a very hot performer. I sweat a lot, and this is absolutely, this was the role that I sweat the most. So I did short a couple mic snakes, and I had to have them replaced mid-performance. So that was a bit of an experience. But largely, it went off without a hitch. Our cast was really great. It was nice to be back in that space after so long away. So I had a great time. It was a net success for sure.
Very nice, very nice. Well, that's great to hear. I feel like it's so important to find the space to do those things that bring you joy. I have not had the opportunity. There's so many things that just once you're out of high school and maybe college, you just kind of lose touch with a little bit unless you really are active in getting back into them. I think about my experience with choirs, and I loved being in choir in college and in high school. I was one of I think only 2 non-music majors in my college audition choir. It was just such a incredible moment in the day, and such an incredible time to just spend with people who are so deeply passionate about this thing. Even if it's not the thing that I want to do forever, lots of these people wanted to be, music educators. It's just lovely to spend time with people who are so passionate about that thing that they're doing, who, really make the time and effort to create art, and who really in a way that I do, feel really deeply about that art that they create. Right. I think, there was a couple pieces that I think for a while in practices, once we had them to a certain level, when you're learning them, it's hard, you're not really fully connecting with it, but at a certain point you know it well enough that you can start to connect with the actual the actual qualities of the music. And I remember a couple of pieces in college choir that there was a number of us who could not get through the piece because it was just, the beauty of it was just that overwhelming. And when it comes to performance, you you breathe deep and you're I can get through this piece. When it's in front of people, fine. But when you're in the group practicing, you allow yourself to be vulnerable in that way, because these other people are feeling that same thing with you. And it's hard to find those things organically unless you're really actively looking for that, right?
I always think it's very strange. Memorization and technical skill and kind of muscle memory, getting into a character can be really strange. It's a strange balance, because you have to complete all of these technical tasks and also tune into the meaning of whatever you're trying to convey to the audience. My baseline that I always return to is know it well enough that you don't feel like you have to know it anymore. Know it so well that you don't ever have to think about it again while you're performing it, so your body can just take over and feel naturally take in what's happening around you and react to that. Once you get to that level of proficiency, you can just turn your brain off and let everybody else in the choir kind of lift you up, and you just trust whoever you're with to keep going as well with you. And man, I felt that during this run of this show, where it was, I feel like I've been in productions before where I knew, even going into tech, like going into shows, like walking into a theater, knowing that I wouldn't be able to trust everybody that I was on stage with, like to know their parts, or to not make mistakes, or sing the correct things or whatever. Those technical things were still a burden mentally. And this show, I truly felt it was, everybody was just on top of whatever they needed to do. They knew it well enough to not need to know it. It was an incredible feeling to be on stage with other people that were just like channeling more than just like pushing sound out of their body. If my legs would have held out, I would have done it 100 more times.
Well, I'm very glad that is something you got the chance to do.
Thank you, man.
Sounds like a lot of fun. Well, that is not what this show is about. Like we said, this is
certainly
not a community musical theater podcast, nor is it a college choir podcast. This is a D&D podcast. So let's talk about some D&D, shall we?
I'm excited. Yes, super excited about this prompt. I had an idea right away, and I followed that idea, and it led me to other ideas, and I'm super stoked to present all of them to you.
This week, our prompt was to create magical versions of underused weaponry. So the things that people don't generally gravitate towards because the damage is lower or the range is worse. And so for the most part, people are choosing from a much smaller handful of weapons than actually exist in the game. People don't usually use slings very often. People usually don't use sickles as frequently either. Whips and nets occasionally, but I don't see them super frequently.
Right.
So it's those sorts of things that I think we're talking about, trying to find ways to improve upon and add some flair to the lesser used weapons in the game. This did make me think about, though, while I was in the creation process, about the new 2024 weapons rules, and specifically the weapon
masteries
rules. Michael, I think that a thing that we should just do right now is rank the weapon mastery properties before we get into this fully.
Okay.
What do you think, Michael? What would you argue is your number 8 of this group?
So I'm of two minds here, because on one hand, I think these are great. They add a lot of versatility to martial classes across the board. I think there can be a lot more strategy involved in selecting weapons. I also think it kind of turns the tide against some weapons that were far and away top choice for almost every player. Like the rapier is no longer the rogue weapon, right? Well, we've talked about this a little bit in previous episodes. On the other hand, I think there is some room here for these to kind of encroach on other abilities. So there is more chance for overlap. I see that most with push. I think there are a lot of other abilities that can push a creature. Maybe not directly linked to martial characters, but there are a lot of feats that can push. There are eldritch invocations that can push. There are weapons already, magic weapons that can push. So I think for that reason, I think push is huge. I think that is my number 8 because it's already in the game so many other places. that you can kind of stack something else onto your character to get that.
I feel like for me, push and topple are sort of right neck and neck for me. I would put topple lower than push just because topple requires a saving throw and push does not.
Requires the save,
That's the only thing that I think edges push out for me is just like that's automatic. If you hit a creature with this weapon, you get to push it, like it doesn't get a strength save or anything. It just moves away. But I think those two are both at the bottom for me for exactly that reason. They cross over with a lot of other features.
I think topple is just above for me because prone can be massive, and if you're pushing somebody 10 feet, like they're just 10 feet further away from you.
Fight on the edge of more cliffs, Michael. Fight on the edge of cliffs.
Correct. Yeah, you got to push them, and then they take fall damage. Yeah. That is the key. I agree. Push and topple are 8 and 7 for me. I really like cleave. I think it's a rule that a lot of people have adopted already anyway. If you, especially on KOs, if you reduce an enemy to 0, you can kind of use your unspent damage on another creature within that same range. I have played at tables that use that rule. I think cleave is probably towards the top for me. If I'm doing this just outright as I'm going up as a split second thing, I think push is at the bottom.
Okay.
Topple is at 7. I think slow is at 6.
I agree with that
because of the 10-foot cap.
Yeah.
I will say with slow, longbows have slow.
Yeah.
If you get your reliable range out to a couple hundred feet, and you can slow somebody without them knowing that it's even you doing it, it may not make much of a difference, but like what a crazy thing mentally to do to an opponent, to just reduce their speed over and over again from hundreds of feet away. I think that visual is very funny to me.
I think slow is really, really good.
Honestly, I think they're all really good. This is kind of splitting hairs. But slow would be at 6.
I think 6 is very fair for slow. I agree with that. Let me see how you feel about this. I feel like next up for me, Sap and then Vex after that. Sap at 5, Vex at 4.
I disagree with that, actually.
Okay.
I think that they're close in my list, but I do disagree.
What would you put at 5?
I think Graze goes at 5, just because it's kind of like a passive thing.
Really interesting.
Yeah, I mean it's great to do that. I don't know that it makes that much of an active difference in combat. It's a wonder. And again, these are all good. Splitting hairs here. I think Graze has to go at number 5 for me because it's just like a thing that you do. You know, it's not it's a passive thing.
Sure,
it's the 2014 monk for me.
I understand.
And then above that immediately would be Sap at 4 and Vex at 3.
I think that's fair. I mean, for me, Graze goes above those two.
Okay.
There might be something of the like video game optimizationist in me. You know, there is something very like, you know, if you stack up enough things on your character in various like action RPGs and stuff like that are doing passives, like it
That's
helps
true.
a lot.
Yeah.
Right. So like passives end up being a big strategy for me a lot of the time in like action RPGs and stuff. Is like, what can I do that just like always deals passive damage regardless of what I'm doing or how good my skill is, like. But I can see the argument here, and I think that's very fair. You know, I like a little bit of guaranteed damage, but it doesn't scale very well. I think you're right about that.
It doesn't.
Like
it's
I think it's good as a low level. If it's maybe the first weapon mastery property you take and everything like that, you know you can get away with it at low levels. Yeah. But it does really lose effectiveness up higher. So that's probably fair. And then it's just Nick and Cleave, which I think we both agree are high up there. I would put Cleave number 1 and Nick number 2.
I'm the opposite, but I like both of them so very much. Cleave, for what I just said earlier, just the additional hit on a second creature without the extra economy expenditure is giant. The thing that reduces it to second for me is the negative modifier. That is still, if you're not going to include the positive modifier, don't hit me with my negative modifier. You got to take everything or nothing. So I do like cleave very much, but Nick for me, freeing up a bonus action and still getting 2 strikes, it can be game changing. Action economy is everything. Like it's not.
You're right.
If you have 4 creatures on either side of a combat, it's not 4 versus 4. It's however many strikes Team A can do versus however many strikes Team B can do. And something like Nick, if you have multiple characters in a party that have this,
it's true.
Massive. It can be an immediate game over for the opposition.
You are right. I mean, let's be real. Gloomstalker Rager / Assassin Rogue multi-class with a weapon with Nick property. I mean, that's something like potentially 5 attacks on your first turn, all of which are made with advantage and all of which auto crit if you hit. Or like one of them does at least.
At least one of them.
You know, that is a pretty massive game changer. But even just in regular combat, freeing up that bonus action and basically getting a secondary bonus action for the 2 weapon fighting can be pretty massive. So, you know what? I'll take your argument there. I will agree. It should belong at number 1.
I'm thinking like half casters too, like paladins or... I mean, the sorcerer that I'm playing in your game right now, I have really come to appreciate the benefit of healing word as a bonus action.
Mm-hmm. Very true, very true.
But again, I do like all of these,
and they give you the option to play into an archetype in maybe a different way. Play into your character's fighting style in a new way. So I really appreciate that. I like them a lot. But we should probably move on to talking about the ways in which we have improved underused weapons as well.
Let's do it.
So what I have brought today, in similar fashion to normal, part new creations, but also partially framework. It is there to create a new option, and an option that actually I really like in a number of ways that I think could actually maybe I could go down a rabbit hole with. I didn't, but I could. So
almost too easy with a prompt like this.
I have created weapon improvements or expanded options for enhanced weapons. So the following is an incomplete list of weapon-specific features that can be applied with an Artificer's enhanced weapon infusion.
Ooh,
normally, the enhanced weapon infusion gives a straight +1 magic bonus to whatever weapon you enhance. Or when you get to 10th level, it's a +2 bonus. This is the same for enhanced armor. It's a +1 to your armor class, or it's a +2 when you reach 10th level as an Artificer. These are alternative options. It still takes the same enhanced weapon infusion, but when applying this infusion to a weapon from the list, the Artificer can choose whether to apply the listed effects rather than the standard +1 weapon bonus. It's still a magic weapon. It doesn't have the +1, but it has a different minor effect. An Artificer of 10th level or higher can apply the listed effects in addition to a +1 bonus instead of the standard +2 bonus as well. So I didn't do tiered effects for these. I just decided you get the effect and you get a +1 if you're 10th level. To account for that. I've made enhanced versions of a blowgun, a boomerang, a net, a sickle, a sling, and a whip.
Nice.
The enhanced blowgun, this magic weapon infuses its ammunition with magical effects. When the wielder hits a creature with this weapon, the target must make a Constitution saving throw against your Artificer spell save DC. On a failed save, the target is affected by one of the following conditions until the beginning of the attacker's next turn. So it's either blinded, charmed, frightened, or poisoned. Minor additional effects.
I like that a lot.
Then we have an enhanced boomerang. This magic weapon gains the properties of the returning weapon infusion. So it comes, you can make it come back to you. Normally a boomerang only comes back to you if you miss, which is a strange thing. In this case, that's not the case. Additionally, when the creature makes a ranged attack with this weapon, it can target one additional creature within 20 feet of the first target before returning. And you make a separate attack roll for each target. The number of additional targets also increases to 2 when you reach 10th level as an Artificer. Then we have the enhanced net. A creature restrained by this magic weapon must make a strength check against your Artificer spell save DC rather than a DC of 10 to escape. Additionally, it requires 10 points of slashing damage to the net to free a creature restrained by it. Normally, a net only requires an escape DC of 10 and 5 slashing damage to be dealt to it to escape. Very low bar to clear. This is an enhanced net. It's harder to escape from by a long shot. You have an enhanced sickle. This gives a bleed effect. A creature hit by this magic weapon takes 1d4 damage at the start of each of its turns until it heals at least 1 hit point.
That's a passive thing. That's
just a little passive bleed. I love
cause of damage.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, if we're talking like if we're talking Pokemon analogs, I like applying the poison condition and just doing a little bit of like poison damage every turn. Great. Or burn damage. Excellent. And then we have an enhanced sling. This magic sling, and this is one that I actually really like, that I think is like feels magical in another sort of cool way. This magic sling becomes more effective the larger the opponent is. So for every size category larger than the wielder, this magic weapon deals an additional 1d4 damage on a hit. So this is your David and Goliath sling.
Interesting. That's so good.
Right? So if you're small and you're fighting a large creature, that's an additional 2d4 damage. An
additional 2d4.
That. So this is a sling that helps you fight against larger and larger enemies. It's not as useful against
the
things
weapon
that
of the kobolds
on the same level as you, but like it is much more useful against larger things.
So good.
And then
I like that a lot.
The enhanced whip. When a creature attacks with this magic weapon, hit or miss, it can force the target of the attack to make one of the following: either a dexterity saving throw against your Artificer spell save DC, or drop one object it is holding, or a Constitution saving throw, or be deafened until the end of the attacker's next turn. So it's either a whip crack right next to their ear, or it's hitting them in the hand to make them drop something. And that's on a hit or a miss. So that's just like, if you've ever been around a whip, like even if it doesn't hit you, it like is terrifying. And like
it is,
it's just a big swinging,
super intimidating.
Rope.
Yeah,
so it's that kind of thing that just enhances that aspect of it to do a little bit better. Now, of course, this is a framework by which anybody could continue to homebrew more options to be in place of, you can use the enhanced weapon, but if there's an effect you want to add instead of the +1 bonus, homebrew it. You can do it in the moment. You can do it,
sure.
Beforehand, whatever. I think it might be a fun thing to allow, your Artificer specifically to come up with something kind of neat and unique to them. So I would encourage anybody, if you have an Artificer and they're kind of bored by things like enhanced weapon and enhanced defense, and even like the enhanced spellcasting focus options, maybe bring this up and say, I'm willing to play with you about what enhanced weapon means, right? We can do +1 bonus, or if you think you have something more fun and creative that we can call. Here's a couple examples, but feel free to expand on it.
I mean, so much room for this to expand out to any weapon that any player would want to do. I really do want to highlight the ones that you have created, though. These all feel grounded in what that weapon would be able to do. I think maybe the sling is the most outlandish one.
Yeah.
Just because it doesn't really make sense, but it does contextually make sense. I think it's really funny. I love the net. I made a barbarian subclass a long time ago. I was like a seafaring barbarian that was based around the use of a net. You always have a net equipped, and like the tension of the net is so strong that it's based on your strength modifier. So you have like this steel net, and it felt very ham-fisted. And this is just a good way to explain away stronger tensile rope. Like your Artificer just makes better rope for your net. I love that. The boomerang thing is great. It's very Captain America bouncing his shield across a bunch of Hydra agents. These are great.
I'm glad you enjoy it. I had a good time making them. I feel like hopefully they, would encourage a player to, take on a weapon that they might not otherwise usually gravitate towards because it just does something cool that fits a character archetype or whatever else. What about you? Did you come up with the same sort of framework nonsense that I always do?
Not at all.
Great.
Not at all. This is one week where we are very different.
Excellent.
So I made 4 things. You can open your document. I call these malleable armaments. My idea right away was to increase the flexibility of weapons that people typically do not choose to make them more attractive. That led me to making 2 new base weapons of my own.
Ooh, fun.
And I'd like to start with those. The first of which is a scythe.
Okay.
And these are not dressed up in any way. These are just the base versions of these. I did create new mastery options for each of them, though.
Okay.
So the scythe is a martial melee weapon. It deals 1d10 bludgeoning, piercing, or slashing damage. It is a finesse weapon with reach, and it is 2-handed. The weapon mastery property is called Opportune, and it says that this weapon can deal bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing damage, none of them at the same time. The wielder must choose which damage type to use before making an attack roll. The idea here would be the point of your blade would be piercing damage, the butt of the hilt would be your bludgeoning damage, and the length of the blade would be slashing damage. So its gimmick is that it can do all 3.
Yeah, I like that.
We also have a stake, simple melee weapon dealing 1d4 piercing damage. It is also a finesse weapon, and its weapon mastery is called Upper Hand. If you are attacking a creature that is prone, this weapon gains the versatile property, which bumps it up past a d6 to a d8. So only if they are prone, this will push it up to a versatile 1d8. So you can use it with 2 hands.
Yeah, cool. So you're like stabbing down with both hands, just like plunging into the heart. Yeah.
So those are my 2 new weapons. I know that wasn't exactly what the prompt was, but they give some versatility for people that don't necessarily want to use like a halberd or a pike or a sickle. You could do a scythe instead of a different polearm, or a stake instead of some sort of thrown weapon.
Yeah.
Then I made 1 magic item, an established magic item.
Great.
This is called Rigor Mortis. This is a whip and a pike.
Oh.
It is rare. It requires attunement. This razor-sharp weapon is made of an easily liquefiable metallic substance. Within a matter of moments, its structure can switch from the pliant form of a whip to the sturdy form of a pike and back again.
Ooh, okay.
You gain a +1 bonus to attack and damage rolls made with this magic weapon while attuned to it. You also know the Mending cantrip and can cast it as a bonus action.
Ooh, okay.
If Rigor Mortis is in whip form, and you take damage, you can change its structure to become a pike as a free action. If it's in pike form and you regain hit points, you can change its structure to become a whip as a free action. Alternatively, you can cast Mending on Rigor Mortis to change its form at will without the loss or recovery of hit points. If you are proficient with either a whip or a pike, your proficiency bonus can be added to the attack and damage rolls of this weapon, even if you're not proficient with both. Additionally, in whip form, Rigor Mortis's damage die is a d6 instead of a d4, and in pike form, you cannot suffer from the heavy property.
That is fun. I like this weapon. I like the name quite a lot, especially.
Well, thank you.
Fun little unique thing, and makes me think of like Soul Calibur.
It is very Soul Calibur. It is very Ivy from Soul Calibur, yes. And then the last thing that I made is sort of similar to yours in the vein that I shaped this just for rogues, as yours was shaped just for artificers. But this is an expansion on the dart. I call this roguish projectiles. And this makes a dart more of a rogue-specific weapon. So as a finesse weapon, a dart can be a great asset to a rogue, but is often passed over in favor of stronger alternatives like crossbows. The following changes can give rogues a leg up if darts are found during an adventure. These dart improvements utilize a dart DC, which equals 8 plus proficiency bonus plus your dexterity modifier. These are all subclass specific enhancements to darts.
Okay.
So if you use a dart and you are of this specific subclass, this is what a dart can do for you. When you hit another creature with a dart as an arcane trickster, you can select one other creature within 5 feet of your original target. The second creature must make a wisdom saving throw against your dart DC. On a failure, you can apply all sneak attack damage die results between the two targets in any way you choose. So you can't break down the damage dealt evenly or however you want, but you can select which damage dice, which damage dice goes to which creature. So you can put all of your eggs in one basket and flip it over to the other creature, the secondary target, or you can get it as close to half and half as you want, anywhere in between.
Nice.
So that is for an arcane trickster. When you hit another creature with a dart as an assassin, applying poison with a cunning strike feature does not cost any sneak attack damage, so you don't have to spend a d6 out of your sneak attack damage to do that. Additionally, through your envenom weapons feature, your darts impart a resistance to poison damage in creatures that would normally be immune.
Okay.
So through envenom weapons, you ignore poison damage or poison resistance.
Yeah.
But if you're an assassin, you can make them resistant instead of immune to poison.
Nice.
With your darts, specifically.
That's slick. Yes, darts only.
For a soul knife, when you hit another creature with a dart as a soul knife, all sneak attack damage attached to the hit can be psychic damage if you'd like it to be. Additionally, if you drop a creature to 0 hit points using a dart, you can regain 1 psionic energy die.
That's fair.
So it puts that back into your pool. And when you hit another creature with a dart as a thief, the target must make a dex saving throw against your dart DC. On a failure, roll 1d6. If you retrieve your dart, you can also take gold from the target equal to the result.
I see. Nice.
So you just steal from them.
There's not a lot of things in the game that like have specific rules about taking gold through class features from your opponents. It does feel like the thief is a good version of something for that, but it's not in there.
Right.
Yeah, I like those like subclass specific dart effects especially. I think that's the kind of thing that becomes very cool, especially for rogues who, are in the shadows and probably, you can imagine throwing out like, 3 little darts from the shadows, and they do a little extra bonus thing that normally you would be like, yeah, I do that with a dagger, or I do that with, a crossbow because the crossbow does more damage. But like this is like, well, yeah, I could do that with a crossbow, I guess, but these weapons overcome, poison immunity.
Yeah.
Very slick. I like it.
Thanks, man. That was my idea that I had right away, was to do something with rogues. Because I don't know if I've ever seen a dart used in a game. I can't remember a single time where I've witnessed a player use a dart. If there's a weapon that I need to highlight for this prompt, it's got to be a dart.
I know whenever I like have built a monk or have had a monk in my party, they always come preloaded with darts as class equipment. I also can't remember if I've ever had one of my monks throw a dart or had a monk in a adventuring party that I've DM'd for throw a dart. I don't know for sure. But I do think it is useful to perhaps come up with some options that make it a little more appealing. There's so many options that are just not necessarily viable within the framework of optimization, which has sort of overtaken the conversation in many online spaces especially. I think about the way that the game began with only 3 classes, right? You either have like wizard, thief, or fighting man, right?
Yeah.
It's like wizard, thief, or fighting man. That was kind of all of the bases that you need to hit. And if you really dig into it, like, what do we still have? We still have the same kind of, ideas, right? We have magic user. We have, DPS, quick, fast, dexterous guy. And we've got, hit
fighting
things
man.
Hard. Fighting man tank, right? Like, we still have those things, but we've added more complexity to them. We've added more identity to different parts of that. And I would hate for us to get to the point that I think we're on the trajectory for until 2024 edition of like, let's be real, there are only like 4 weapons actually in the game. There's viable ranged weapon, there's viable close quarters finesse weapon, viable close quarters heavy weapon, and like, that's kind of it. But there should be reasons. There should be reasons that they all feel unique instead of just like, do you want little sword, big sword, ranged weapon, or short range weapon? Like those shouldn't be the only options.
I do believe that the weapon masteries are mitigating that now.
I agree.
Because you can make a case for a weapon that deals slightly less damage but has a mastery that really is beneficial and still be viable and still be optimized.
Definitely. I agree 100%.
Great prompt. This is a great prompt.
I had a really good time with that. If you've got a prompt that you want to see us tackle here on the show, our inbox is open, and we definitely need prompts. So please send them over to us. You can reach out to us through email at collegeofcreationpod@gmail.com, or you can come on over to our Patreon. You can join at the free tier and get access to all of the creations that we've made so far. You get all the regular episodes, plus you get the PDFs of the things that we create so that you can look at them, tear them apart, and use them in your own game, whatever you want to do. And if you decide to stick around with us for a little bit more and join at the $5 tier, you get some bonus content. You get some more episodes of me and Michael just, shooting the breeze. Please send us your prompts. We are happy to have them. Michael, should we roll for next week's prompt?
I think so.
I have no idea who rolled last time, so why don't you go ahead and give us a roll?
Today we have a 12.
A 12, we have cursed objects that can be overcome as the player levels up. So the leveling up is a key factor here. And they are cursed in some way. Now, are they fully overcome on a level up, or does it gradually occur? And what's the nature of the curse?
Yeah.
I might have to revisit my cursed barbarian.
Yeah. With the level up mechanic. Is this asking me to make another class? A cursed class?
Maybe. By 20th level, you're not cursed anymore.
That's the only level progression.
First level
You're
sucks.
in rough shape.
20th level,
are at death's door.
Not cursed anymore.
Completely cured.
It's a
All it
gradual
takes
thing,
is 19 level ups. Yeah, you're all
it
good
a J curve
by 19. Yeah, yeah. This is interesting because it kind of is worded to be an item creation, right? Because it's the actual prompt is cursed objects that can be overcome. It seems like we're making items, but this could bleed into a whole bunch of different things. Like this could be a monster. These could be monsters that are resistant or immune to curse. This is going to be something that you make with the monster parts of a monster that's immune to a curse. It can be a recipe for a potion.
Right now, my biggest thoughts are like, what direction do I want to tackle the level up part of this, right? Like, is it...
Yeah, that's the tricky one.
Is it a gated thing where it's like, until you reach X level, you can't access the pieces of this that, overcome this curse? Or am I going to, like, try and find some other way to be like, to align this with level with, oh God help me, proficiency bonus, to make it sort of align as level up goes. I'm interested to see what we come up with, but I have no idea where I'm going to start, but I kind of like that. So we'll see what we come up with for next time.
Yeah, this is a good prompt.
Until next time, though, Michael, if you don't mind, I think I have something to say to the people before we say goodbye this time.
We had a very long conversation before we recorded today.
We sure did.
And I, full disclosure, was 100% planning on handing this part over to you today. So please take it away. Dan, would you like to say something to the listeners before we say goodbye?
I would love to say something to the listeners before we say goodbye. I want to keep it as short as possible. But given the circumstances, lots of things that have transpired, I know that the people out there listening to us are probably feeling a lot of stuff. And it's complicated. And it's going to take a while to process what it means for you individually. And I know mostly what we do on this show is be goofy and fun and create things for a game where we tell stories, heroes and monsters and whatever else. But what I think we really want to do here, what I want to do here, is to let you all know that you have community. You have community here with us, and you have communities very near you. And if you don't feel that that is true, I hope that you can find some ways to go outside of that and find that wherever you can and support it and cause it to flourish wherever you can cause it to flourish. I think it's more important now than ever that we all create space for our communities, that we are there for each other in big ways and small ways, and that we, to use something from a TikTok of Michael's a few days back, keep a fire going for each other, that we tend to that fire, that we create a space where others can feel like they can be heard, be seen, participate, and just be for a time at least. I want to express that we appreciate you all so much, and we hope that you all take care of yourselves and take care of each other, and we will be here to help continue giving you as much joy as we can muster for as long as Michael and I can.
And with that, until we are able to talk to you again next week, please take care, and we will see you soon. Goodbye.
Goodbye.